Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Livin The Dream video and audio podcast. We're excited to have another great former Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting student of mine who's gone on to do great things today in this latest edition. I think this is episode number 12. And the whole idea of this podcast, Livin The Dream podcast, is to go and see how Full Sail graduates, Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting graduates, are doing and take it through their dream from where it started to where it is now to hopefully where it's heading afterward. And I have an awesome guest today joining us from the West Coast in Seattle, Washington. James Ballerstein is with us. James, how are you tonight?
I'm doing wonderful, sir. It's a beautiful evening here in Seattle, which are few and far between. So excited to be able to go and enjoy that a little bit earlier today.
I'm excited for you to enjoy the great times out there as well. I know it rains a lot out there and all that, but I'm never been there, man. I can't wait to check it out someday. But James has been very busy since graduating. In fact, he was very busy before he graduated from our program. He is working as an assistant producer for the Pressure to Rise TV show, which you can see on Fox Television. He's also a freelance associate producer for a company called the LDM Worldwide Corporation. He's worked for a long time for Moto America broadcast and does some extra stuff as well with that. And he also works full-time as a commercial and content producer for KOMO Television in Seattle, Washington, where he also does a lot of work for the Sinclair broadcast group. And James, I know you've been doing a lot of other stuff too, in addition to all that. So we'll get into all that as we get going. But I always start with the same question, which is, where did this whole dream of being a broadcaster start for you?
Oof, that's tough. Man, I remember the very first time that I ever watched my very first football game. I want to say probably 2006 or something like that. I was a late introduction to like NFL and stuff like that. But watched my first game. It was a Ravens-Steelers game. Listening to the announcers and then the broadcast team and stuff like that go through, all these contact cards, all these things behind the scenes that I didn't know about. Listening to them go through like all these calls, having all these stats right offhand, I was like, these guys are encyclopedias for sports. It's absolutely insane how much they can remember. That was all before I found out about, shot sheets and little note cards that these guys write, or actually big note cards. They get pretty big. But, hearing them describe that, reactions from the fans through the PA system, being on TV, being fancy, kind of being known a little bit, and just being able to share knowledge of sports was a big thing that got me started on the journey. And football was kind of the inlet for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you talked about being a Baltimore Ravens fan, and you certainly made that well known during your time at Full Sail. But where did kind of that passion for Ravens football specifically, you mentioned watching the games and seeing the announcers with their cards and all that. But how did that kind of fuel your love for potentially wanting to go down this road where you did something a little bit more sports involved?
Oh, man. I have wanted to be part of like the Ravens team since the beginning. Like I said, seeing that first Ravens Steelers game, I've always been a huge fan of defense. So when I got to see Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, I had my choice, because I was very neutral. I had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed or Paul Amalu on the other side. And so I choose Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. There's a little more fire, a little more energy there. And so I was a big fan of that. And that's when I knew that I wanted to work for that franchise in some aspect. Nothing really came about that. I didn't understand or know anything about roads to like coaching or player development or anything like that. And then, Full Sail popped up on my Facebook ad one day, and it was kind of an easy choice. I mean, it's bad to say, but I didn't even really know that much about who Dan Patrick was until, I started researching the place, and then I realized that he was a bunch of guys in my favorite movie from Adam Sandler. And then I realized that he's also a very famous, sportscaster, ESPN. He does his podcast now. So it seemed like if he's going to be back in the program, there's got to be something legit about it. There's got to be something good. So that got me started with, going down the road for broadcasting. The dream is still to work for the Ravens, but we'll see.
Yeah, you'll get there when you get there, right? You're doing so
Mhm.
many things already, and you did it while you were in school. But let's kind of backtrack before you got to that decision when the ad popped up through Facebook for the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. You lived a pretty full life before that. You know, you're someone who we have different kinds of students. Some who get into the game like kind of generally when someone, you know, the age most people start college, and then we get some people who've had experience before in college and life, and then they come to us at a later point. You were kind of in category B. How did the experiences that you had in your life beforehand prepare you for the next step later in life to make this decision?
Mm. Resiliency was a big part of that. You know, like you said, I grew up in a very different background. I came from, you know, small town USA, little town in the Midwest is where I spent the majority of my time growing up, and it was tough. I mean, I still apologize to my mother every day for this, but I was a terrible child. I got in trouble all the time, um, and I knew that I needed like a little bit of a change. So that background kind of pushed me into the military. I needed a shock treatment. You know, I had wanted to be in the military for a long time since I was a kid, and I was tired of working manual labor jobs. I was tired of, you know, not having places to stay. I was tired of like fighting for meals every day. So the military kind of gave me an outlet to be able to push me out, and it taught me a lot of discipline there, a lot, and that has helped out significantly through, you know, work, um, pursuing dreams as we're talking about on this. You know, it was nice. It was nice to be able to move into something like that, not have to worry about where the next meal came from, not have to worry about where, you know, I was going to stay. I always knew that I had a spot. I always knew I had, you know, people to back me. You get a real sense of brotherhood, and I had been missing that after I got out. There was a span. I got out in 2012, and so there was a span between 2012 and 2020 when I started, you know, at school, and you feel kind of lost. You know, you still have your friends. I went back to Florida after I got done, where I'd been vacationing in my military time, and you miss the brotherhood. I don't know. It's so difficult to explain um, that these guys will do anything for you, you know, and you don't usually get something like that with a lot of your outside of military friends or outside of development friends. You know, sports in the same way. You get the guy who'll go to bat for you no matter what. Military was a lot of that, and so I still felt kind of lonely whenever I got out, and people didn't share the interest that I had. I was kind of rough around the edges, so yeah, you know, the tough backgrounds and then struggling pretty much since, you know, I was little was something that really helped push me down the path, helped me stay focused on what I wanted to do, helped me, you know, realize that it doesn't matter what you come from or where it's from, you know, you can get to where you want to go if you just, you know, grind it out. And obviously sometimes you get a little bit of help here and there, but you know, it's a grind. And so struggling when I was a kid taught me that you just got to push and keep pushing and keep trying and keep learning.
Yeah, and you mentioned that brotherhood that you had in the military and how you were kind of looking to get it back. But I know there were probably plenty of lessons that you learned during your time there that directly relate to broadcasting as well, which may seem kind of for some people to be kind of a different kind of combination. But what did you learn from your military time that you think specifically helped you once you got into broadcasting?
Not sleeping. A lot of not sleeping. I the military will help you, or it helped me in my specific case to, you know, pay attention to the small details. You know, you do a sports broadcast, you got to get all your stats right. You got to get your lines, you know, as right as you can. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect every time, but you do the absolute best that you can with everything. You give yourself 100%, and you do all the prep work beforehand to help set you up for that. So the discipline that I learned in the military helped me out a lot with, you know, not pushing assignments back. You know, it's easy to, you know, want to push things back to the weekend. You know, you go to school in the morning, you get out, you may have to work a job. You know, some people work jobs, and then you get to the weekend, and you want to. It's your only real downtime, and so you push assignments all the way until Sunday, and then yeah, it's not a great way to go about pretty much anything in their life, just pushing it to the right. Um, so yeah, so the military taught me to like really buckle down, get my stuff done, prepare myself properly, make sure that I learn everything that I possibly can about my job, and what I want to do so that I can give the best that I can.
You mentioned the period after the military when you were kind of trying to find what was next. And I did a little research on your LinkedIn today and saw that you actually worked at Norman Love Chocolates, which I did not know, which was kind of cool. You had told me you'd lived in the Fort Myers, Florida area, which is where it's located, which I also used to live in. So I know all about it. But man, you were in the chocolatier business for a while. What did you take out of that?
It was more hard work. Norman's a guy. He's a very special guy. He's very tough, but he's very fair. And I actually didn't even start off doing chocolates in the beginning. I started off being a barista. I was serving things, and so Norman wants you to learn how to do everything, you know, to a certain standard, and it's his standard. He's very European when it comes to things like that. He wants everything to be perfect. He wants you to know word for word what the chocolates are made out of, where the beans come from, where the ganache is from, how old the things are. You got to make sure you rotate all the stock properly. And I just kept on sitting back there in the front, serving the people. And whenever I could, I would look back because we had these big glass windows. If you've been to the shop, you know there's these huge glass windows behind the register. And you look back and you see all these guys, like, you know, sometimes they're jamming out to music, but I mean, you see them creating these things. And I mean, I never understood the scope of what Norman had done with his time. And I realized pretty quickly, but I never like realized the pride that I should have, you know, working for a place like that. I mean, he's a world-renowned chocolatier. He sent people to, you know, world chocolate competitions to do things, and they've won. I mean, he wrote the book on, you know, doing chocolate in the United States. He teaches, you know, the Culinary Institute of America on how to do their whole entire, you know, chocolate program, from tempering, mixing ganaches, you know, when products are from, or when products are their best, you know, where to get them from that have better quality than other places. And so, yeah, there's a wide variety of jobs. If you did look at the LinkedIn, there's a wide variety of jobs in there. But Norman's is probably one of my favorites because, you know, I got to be a part of something bigger, which is the general consensus of doing sports broadcasting. You know, it's you're part of a team. I mean, you're not even, honestly, a lot of the people try to get big heads when they do stuff. You got to realize that you're like the smallest part of the operation. It's all the people that help you to be successful. You may be the face of what's happening, but me working behind the scenes has shown me that there's an army that goes behind every single person you see. There's makeup people, there's cameramen, there's people who check scripts, there's people who write scripts, there's people who, you know, edit your videos. Once you get to a certain level, you don't really have to do quite as much hands-on anymore. And so you have this army of people that you have to take care of. And so, like, you know, part of Norman's was that as well. You know, we unified, and I may have been the face of, you know, the front of, you know, what people see, who they buy from, and stuff like that, with all the information. That's the people in the back. It's all the people that are, you know, grinding every day to make these little pieces of magic. And I still have cravings for those things. It sucks because I can't get them. They ship, but I'm not trying to ship them from Fort Myers all the way to Seattle and hope that they get here in one piece.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what Norman Love Chocolates is, there have been a lot of kind of copycats since. It's those little chocolates that are like really artistically designed, and you might get like a key lime one, and it's kind of like looks like key lime kind of a little bit. You might get an orange one that looks like an orange and all that kind of stuff. But I love how you talked about the teamwork and how that all worked in, and also about how you're, you know, the variety of different kinds of jobs you have kind of brought you to the point in life when you were ready to do something where you took all those little things that you learned and move it to something that you kind of enjoyed more and that you were all about. So that leads us to where we were before, where you talked about the Facebook ad popping up and you felt, wow, this is something I'm interested in. What made you take that leap of faith to come to Full Sail?
I had heard things about Full Sail in the past. When I was younger, I was a little video game nerd, and I wanted to design video games. And so Full Sail was actually on my radar beforehand, which may have potentially been why that ad popped up for sports broadcasting. But what pushed me to take the leap was, you know, I don't know, what was I, 30, 34, 33, after 30, we'll just go with that. And, you know, I had no savings. I had nothing to my name aside from a car. You know, I'd been living on the road in a happy place. I was happy to be living on the road in some of the jobs that I was doing, but I also knew that, you know, it doesn't go on forever. Eventually, at some point, I wanted to retire. You need to start putting money away and you need to start doing things. You know, the logical step when I was growing up was college. Um, it's changing slowly over time, but college is, you know, a way to get your foot in the door. It's a networking opportunity, if nothing else, to be able to connect with all these people from all these different areas. And so when I got tired of grinding for every paycheck and, you know, living down to the last penny and you know, pinching everything, I decided that, you know, I love sports. I liked being in football. I wanted to work for the Ravens. I saw the ad and I was like, you know, I have a GI Bill, so I'm just, you know, we're going. I don't care. So I packed up my entire life into my, you know, 4-door Kia Forte and drove down to Orlando and got an apartment without even looking at it, and you know, hopped into school.
I mean, that's a leap of faith. Like you weren't even sure Dan Patrick what he was all about. You weren't sure about the school. You weren't sure about the apartment, and there you go. And then you talked about that camaraderie you were looking for. You had, in my opinion, to this day, one of the most fun classes in terms of the people who were in it because of the way that you all pushed each other, the way that you guys kind of all got along. And you found that in really a lot of different types of people from, you know, everyone, you know, like Lakia Atkins, Josh Laskowski, you know, you had JD, Reinmark, Ben, like you had quite a different crew. And I know at the beginning you even had a couple others like Justin and Eli were in it. But what was it like to kind of go in with a group like that, where you all were driven and you all were kind of playing off each other and pushing each other?
Well, like I said, I've been looking for that camaraderie, and you know, there it was with the, you know, hardship of going through school, and you know, those guys were outstanding. I still talk to them. We still have a WhatsApp group chat, and what was it, 2 years in a row? Yeah, 2 years in a row. I was fantasy football champ. So last year, I believe JD won. So JD, if you see this, I'm coming for you. But you know, we still talk. We still keep each other up on lives. You know, Sherwin just got a new job, so I got to congratulate Sherwin with, you know, a big GIF and a video of me dancing for him. Okay, I didn't do the video dancing, but I sent him a bunch of GIFs. But I mean, it's like the camaraderie was awesome because it felt kind of like the military did. It felt a little bit like home working with some of those guys. I mean, I like and I admire people that aren't afraid to speak what's on their mind, say where improvement needs to be done, because that's what I like to do. You know, I never mean anything maliciously. I gave JD a bunch of crap when we were doing things, but that's because, you know, he was talented. He had a presence that I wish that I had a lot of the times, because he's just this big ball of like energy and fun, and like he's always happy. And I mean, I don't know, I just admired it. And so where I learned certain things faster than he did, I would help him. Where he did things better than I did, he would help me. You know, it was the same with Reinmark. It was the same with Ben when he was there, and it's the same with you know, everybody. Dakota was in there for a little bit during our last half, and so then we picked up Sherwin at the end. And I mean, it's just these group of guys are just, you know, wonderful. So it was nice to have the camaraderie back. It was nice to have a group of people who wanted to push you instead of feeling like it was a competition. You know, we all understood that we would be competing for jobs, and as we ascended the ladder of hierarchy in the sports broadcasting world, then, you know, we could potentially run into each other and compete. But you know, it's still a community. It's still a pool of knowledge that you have to have, and you can learn from everybody else that's around. You never have to, you know, stop, I guess.
How did that kind of environment push you to reach your highest levels while you were with us?
I mean, I would do something, you know, I talked earlier about, you know, not pushing things to the right, but, you know, sometimes, you know, life happens, things happen, you do, and I make a subpar product, and, you know, they would make sure to let me know, jokingly, but also in seriousness. You know, like, we don't want to be, you know, you have the Fab Five when they came through, and so they have their little trademark, and then we've got, you know, us when we came through, like joking about everything, saying that we were the best, but we wanted to be, and so we wanted each other to have the best possible product.
We're talking to James Ballerstein. He is a commercial and content producer for KOMO-TV in Seattle, Washington, among other things, which we'll get into in a little bit. James, one thing that you said to me that kind of surprised me while you were my student, I think it was in the first class I had with you, was, you said, hey, I've been a student before. I didn't feel like I was a great student. I just didn't feel like it was the right environment for me to learn. And I came to Full Sail, and all the visuals really helped because I'm a visual learner. I was surprised because you were crushing it in our program, and I couldn't believe that you hadn't been a good student before. But what about Full Sail kind of fueled your fire to reach learning the way you wanted to learn?
I mean, it's hands on. I mean, it's beautiful. Like I just don't really have any other word to describe it. I mean, having a class with 6 people or 7 people means that you get all the one-on-one time that you need. Sometimes you may not want it. The instructors don't let you fail. The people around you push you. I mean, I was a terrible student, but I think it's because I didn't have the desire to learn what was being given to me, because I just thought that I just had to go to college because I had to. When I came to Full Sail, I made the decision that college was the next step, but I did what I wanted to do versus something that I didn't want to do. And so, being in the studio, being up in front of everybody every day. Gordy's class was stressful because you're just out there and you're just getting badgered by Gordy the entire time, and like you're out doing these on-air live reports, and you have 15 seconds to prepare for it. And so it really keeps you on your toes. And so being constantly challenged, but also having somebody who's like able to, decide how that content is going to be given to you in a way that's good for you, that personal touch with everything. And like I said, like you said, the visuals, the hands-on with everything, it's just so much better than the last place that I went, which I won't mention.
Well, I was impressed with your initiative, right? And you were busy. You were busy throughout your time with us, but you never know when something's going to happen that changes your life. And you had one of those days with us where we had a guest speaker in, and you took the time to go to speak with that guest speaker afterward, and that turned into a job that you still have, right? So can you share that story about how one conversation changed the course of you getting into this business?
Yeah, I if I really look at it realistically, I don't know how far I would have went without having that right there. I mean, it's as I mentioned before, I'm not super outgoing with everything. I find my little group and I stay within that little group. Networking was always a challenge for me, and so taking that shot to go up there and talk to Jason that day was a big thing for me. And you see somebody, you're not sure what their history is, and like the biggest thing I've learned from something like this is that you never know what position that person's going to be in. And so, like talking to Jason, he seemed like he was a relatively small guy. I mean, until I saw the resume and all that stuff like that. But when I took the job, I took it without knowing exactly what I was going to be getting into, or what I was going to be looking at, or what I was going to be doing. But I just knew that networking is important. If I reach out to at least one person, it should have been him. And it took me all kinds of places. I mean, I worked on all kinds of shows with Jason. I did all kinds of things with him. He was a good guy, to kind of mentor underneath. And, it's how you should treat how you talk to everybody in this business. I mean, you may talk to a PA that ends up being, a producer at somewhere you want to work later on. Like, you never know. Like, I met people that now work in places that I want to work, and so I still keep up those connections. So taking that leap to talk to somebody, and coming at them with something that adds value, instead of always trying to be on the take from everybody. You want to be able to add value to that person, and what you want to do with them.
So what did you say to him? Because he ended up hiring you, and this was your, kind of start into Moto America, where you're going to the West Coast and shooting stuff on the weekends while you're, doing your schoolwork and everything else. But what was that conversation like that he said, yeah, why don't you come work for us? How to connect the dots for us there?
I went up to him. I said, hey, I'm James Ballerstein. I was the one who applied for, doing some of that PA stuff that was mentioned on the website. And I don't know anything about motorsports. but I promise you that you will not find somebody that will work harder to be able to try to learn everything about it. And I proved that, as soon as I got in there. Yeah, I mean, I went through and I was doing PA work. If you guys don't know what PA work is, it's just, you're the food and drink person, basically, for lack of a better word, or words I can't say. You're getting snacks, you're running things, you're picking up hard drives. You're doing something that keeps everything together, but you're not really doing what you really want to do there. But while you're there in this PA position, you get to, talk to people, talk to cameramen, talk to other people that are, in the same industry that you want to be in. And you can also network while you're there. And, they gave me the opportunity. I just cranked out work as hard as and fast as I could. Whatever they had for me, whatever list they had, I got it done as soon as I could so that I can grab the camera, go out to the grid and go mess around. So talking to Jason, when I talked to him, I told him, I said, like I said, you're not going to find a person that'll work harder than me when it comes to trying to learn about the sport, learn about what to do. And, he has a soft spot for military guys as well. So that was a kind of a good point. But yeah, I mean, then we talked a little bit about what he had been working on in the past, what he had been working on in the future, or what he would be working on in the future. And so, we got to talking about a lot of other things too, about like military service shows he had worked on with the military and the bass fishing and stuff like that. So we did about 10% business and 90% kind of get to know each other, and he liked what he heard and what he saw. So I went from there.
Yeah, that shows you the value too of the relationships, right? So some people think it's all business. It is business. You got to do your work. You got to give it, like James said, give it everything you got. But you also, just the fact that somebody likes you, that could be it, right? If people like you and they think you're a good person to be around, nobody wants to work with jerks, right? So the fact that he thought you were someone that was cool to talk with, I'm sure that didn't hurt. And there you are in the middle of trying to finish your degree, and then you're working on no sleep, as you mentioned earlier, going back and forth from the West Coast back here for events. How did you manage to do both at a high level, both your student schoolwork and obviously the work that helped you get one of the jobs you have now?
I call it my offset of downtime theory, plan, whatever you want to call it. When I had downtime here, I would study things that I would be able to use for Moto America. And when I was at Moto America and I was in the hotel at night after I got done doing all my stuff during the day, I was still working on schoolwork. I was still studying YouTube videos to try to get better. So basically taking away a lot of my free time to be able to do stuff like that. And I mean, it's some people are different. Each person has their own route. Not everybody's going to be able to do that or want to do that. But that's what works for me is no rest, and just grinding to learn and having a desire to pick up as much as you can. So yeah, free time here, worked on that. Free time there, I worked on school.
I remember you talking about the editing specifically in literally your last day of school. I remember you had a passionate speech for future students, for the students who you were with. And you said, look, like I came into this school, I didn't know anything about editing. Obviously, I learned what I learned in the classes, but I went above and beyond and I did extra work to learn it. And now I'm at a high level. For students who are going through the program, how much does giving that extra time and energy into the work help you once you get into the workplace, having that extra knowledge from, the extra time you put in?
I mean, it helps a lot. I mean, you will learn everything you need to learn from school at a good level, like a base level, and then you just improve on it as you go. You spend your time doing what you want to do. But yeah, no, it's I wanted to come out and I wanted to go directly into editing content for the Ravens, and like you watch some of their videos and it was just still way above where I was. But yeah, it's yeah, I got lost.
Yeah, you're talking about doing the extra work, learning the editing.
Yes. I just wanted my stuff to be better. I talked earlier about competition between the guys, but still understanding that you push each other and you help each other out with a lot of stuff. I wanted to each week bring something new for every assignment that I was doing. So I just grind a little bit harder. I mean, some of it wasn't even, extra work outside of what I had to do. I would see something cool on the internet, or I would see something cool, watching some YouTubers videos or something like that in my free time. And I'd be like, I want to learn how to do that. And so I would implement that into my assignments, and I would just look up research, how to do, blank on Premiere Pro, or how to do blank on After Effects. And there's thousands of guides for all kinds of stuff, and you just make it your own. Don't rip them off completely. Just challenge yourself a little bit creatively, and you know, design it your own way, do your own things. But I mean, everybody can be inspiration. You can use whatever you need to be able to get your stuff done. I mean, if you pull from other people, that's a compliment to them, or hopefully they see it like that and they don't see it as ripping off. As long as you're not blatantly plagiarizing their stuff, that's not good. But taking creative juice from somebody else will help you out quite a bit.
We're talking to James Ballerstein. He's an associate producer doing Moto America broadcast to this date still. James, you mentioned some things you learned from Full Sail, but what were some of your biggest takeaways from the program that help you now in the many jobs that you do?
Teamwork was a big one. The teachers are teachers, but you feel like they're on your side. They feel like you're a part of the team. The people you're working with in your classroom, those are going to be people in the industry. You think about some of the grads that have come through now, and we've got two of them working in a Missouri station, or who is it? Tiananmen?
Tiemann? Yeah,
Tiananmen.
He and Austin Parr, yeah.
Yeah, they're in the exact same, stations. I mean, now they are slightly competitive at their jobs. And so, the teamwork is a big thing. Time management's a big thing that I learned while I was there. Realizing that, you may think you have a week to do something, but you don't. You find out that, if you procrastinate, then you get put up against the wall, or you mess something up and then you have to go and redo it. So, taking time management and stuff like that. But I think teamwork was definitely the biggest one that I learned. It's everybody helping everybody. You're just a small part of the big machine.
All right, well, let's go to now, right? We talked about your background, but what's it like living the dream now for you?
It's wonderful. I mean, I got what I call a big kid job now. Like I said, I'd worked my entire life without really having very much of anything. And so, having the adult benefits is really neat to not have to worry about things like that. Freelancing on the weekends with Moto America is great. It gives me a chance to kind of get away from here and go hang out with some of the guys and do some cool stuff for Moto America and for live TV and for like social media and stuff like that. There's a lot of guys in there who have huge social media followings, and so you can create little videos for them. So I do a bunch of like little side work as in there. I got to do work with Harley. I got to do work with TV station here. So I've worked on like American Heart Association stuff. We had a documentary a little while back that went up for an Emmy. Music videos, regular videos, shooting stuff at my own leisure. I mean, it's been great. I'm very excited that I found video production and learned how to use a camera and bought myself a very nice camera, because now I just document everything. I go out and I take pictures, I shoot video all over the place, I make them like little highlight videos. You get approached by all kinds of people on social media and through all these different agencies and stuff like that to work on specific projects with you. So that's kind of a cool one.
I was curious about that, how you were finding all these jobs. Is it that simple? They reach out to you, or have you done any investigation to try to find some of these jobs?
A lot of it is referrals, and like people, you kind of approach people. You can't just sit around and wait for somebody to come to you, because it's not really going to happen. But that networking thing is a big thing. But yeah, I mean, I've had a couple people.
So what do you mean by that? When you say networking to try to help get a job, how do you actually do that?
That is, man, that's meeting everybody on the TV crew. That's meeting everybody in the production truck. That's making friends with maybe not friends, but professional acquaintances. Some of them are friends with in my series, the riders, because I would have gotten that gig with Harley if I hadn't been wanting to work with one of the guys that was there. I was intending to be his, video creator for the entire season. We were discussing price, and then out of left field, he was starting to get signed by Harley to do this King of the Baggers series that's going on now. And so next thing I know, I'm in Wisconsin in the top secret Harley R&D section with a dude,
Wow.
just eyeballing me the entire time, making sure I'm not shooting things that I wasn't supposed to. So, you just respect everybody. You treat everybody, like the same way. You just don't be mean to anybody. Make your friends, make your connections. People will reach out to you for jobs. I mean, it's if they need help, if they need a second camera. I had a buddy of mine who sent me a thing to shoot a behind the scenes for an upcoming UFC fight that's going on, and so I was supposed to shoot the UFC thing behind the scenes, and so that's what I did. I mean, it was great to have that connection that he passed on to me.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to build your reputation, because your reputation follows you. And as James mentioned, sometimes people will come to you when they know that you're good at something. I mean, people want good people, right? And there are limited resources sometimes for those good people. It's funny you mentioned that top secret Harley stuff. It brought me back to the Harlem Globetrotters, from Harley to Harlem, because those guys were so secretive about some of the footage that we would shoot. And I had a guy sprint up to me and he's like, you can shoot anything. You can shoot anything. Just don't shoot the magic circle. So you got to watch out and follow the directions of what people want and don't want, depending on who you're working for and where you are and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of cool that you brought that up. And you also had mentioned earlier, you mentioned the documentary. You also mentioned to me you did some work on a movie recently. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. Well, the documentary was kind of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was for the Pike's Place Market and what they went through, like in the past, to be able to keep it up during the mid, it was like 1950. Dates are going to be rough for me on this one.
That's okay.
Anyway, Pike's Place Market was under attack by the local city and stuff like that, and so they wanted to build basically high rises all down that thing. They wanted to bulldoze the entire market. If you've ever been there, it is a melting pot of just awesome stuff. I mean, it's local food, it's family businesses. People have been there for 50, 60 years, selling flowers. The fish tosser guys are out there doing their thing, and that's a super entertaining show to be able to see that. And there's just a lot of like culture and depth to the market. And so when these people had heard they were going to like bulldoze it down and build these skyscrapers and parking lots and all that stuff like that, they fought against them. And so it was just this back and forth slander, kind of like what you see in politics these days, between the two parties and trying to figure out, who was right, what they were going to do. There was all kinds of backstabbing stuff. It actually turned into something that was like super, super in depth with like what they were doing and like the levels that they were going through to be deceitful to the other ones. So it was a lot of fun to work on that and like learn some about the history of the area.
Yeah, and I mean that's as Seattle as it gets, right? Talking about that market. I mean that's what obviously the Space Needle, right? And the sports teams, but that's really the first thing you think of when you think of, I guess, Starbucks too, right? But that's kind of the first thing you think of when you think of Seattle, is that marketplace. And for you to be in the middle of all that and documenting it, that's really cool. When you do a project like that, what have you learned from the shooting and the storytelling aspect of your job that you think you've improved on since you've been a professional?
Ooh, man, pretty stuff looks pretty, but it doesn't always get the message across. Just probably one of the tightest things that I've learned so far. Shooting a lot of depth of field on things looks really good for cinematic parts. It looks really good in slow motion. It looks really good for certain things. But when you're doing interviews and you have somebody who fidgets a lot or anything like that, and you're shooting at 1.8 or 2.8 or 1.2, whatever your focal or your aperture is whenever you're shooting. If you're not on automatic focus and they move forward 2 inches, like all of a sudden they're out of focus. And if they don't move back, that whole entire segment's out of focus. So learning how to shoot a little bit higher on the aperture so that the entire head is there, so that if they move or they do anything, they're still going to be in focus, and you're not going to have to sit there on the ring the entire time and like tinker with it. Not everything can be great depth of field. You have to do stuff like that. Storytelling styles, from different backgrounds, creating, all those leading lines that come into, somebody, or lead in from the side, or interview subjects, walking interviews versus, stationary interviews, POV shots. I mean, there's stupid amounts of stuff that I've learned after I got out of school that all lend to like a creative process, and how important audio is and things. The list could go on forever. But that's the big ones. The big ones is like shooting styles, so like cinematic versus a broadcast style. There is a very different style of doing that. Um, I prefer cinematic. I don't get to do it as often as I would like to in my adult job, so I make up for it on the weekends with shooting all the motorcycle stuff.
That's cool. And I love your enthusiasm for learning, and just thinking of all the terms you just threw out there, which I'm sure you didn't know any of those terms before you came to Full Sail. And some of them you didn't know probably after you left Full Sail either, that you learned while you were in the process. But you sound like a real professional, James. You speak the lingo. I mean, it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, it's been a great process through all that. And Full Sail was definitely the jumping off point for that. And I mean, I got to give a lot of props to the crews that I've worked with. I mean, I can't go through and name everybody, but I mean, it's the same. There was a time when some of the guys that were on the crews that I work on now like didn't like me because I'm not tooting my own horn. I swear to God, I can show you text messages and this is them saying it. But they were like, you're a year out of school, 6 months out of school, 3 months out of school, and you shoot better than me, and I've been doing this for 10 years. And I'm like, it's not. That created a lot of people who initially wanted to be mad at me. But then, you go through and you try to learn from them, and you're still asking for their input on stuff. And you're still trying to get that, that touch from somebody else's perspective. And so, it's became the same thing that I had in school where you're working together, obviously, and you want to get the same thing, but you're still competing a little bit. And, you learn from each other, you push each other, in a friendly way, you could still compete a little bit. So,
well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I don't think it gets talked about enough, is that people are human beings, and then oftentimes petty human beings in the real world, right? And we can only, tell you so much. We can tell you about it, but until you experience it, you don't know. And the funny thing about that is you can win people over. Like, people might not like you to start, but if you keep doing things the right way and they respect you, then eventually they might like you, even if they didn't to begin with. I can think of people I got jobs over and stuff like that I ended up working with. And I know they didn't like it. They didn't like me to start, but then we worked really well together and became good friends and that kind of thing. And that's testament to you for being a professional and for being a good person, James. And that's why I think they've kind of turned the corner on stuff like that. But like, think about a lot of our graduates. I mean, some of our graduates come to school, typical high school ending age, and they're done in 2 years, and they're 19, 20 years old, and they're going into the business. You want to bet that there's not going to be some backlash from some people that are older about that. But if you win them over with doing things the right way, then that goes a long way. You won over KOMO-TV in Seattle. They hired you. I didn't. I was crazy to find out about that, but I remember I just kind of found out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa, you got a job working in a market that size, doing commercial production and all that, and you ended up actually doing some work with a friend of mine who works over there. That's pretty cool. How did that all come about in the midst of all the freelance and running around the globe stuff you were doing?
You got me breathing underwater.
Running around was great. I mean, there's a lot of good money to be had, but it was still during the end parts of COVID, and so paychecks are big in freelance, but they're also not every single time. I mean, if you're not the Steven Spielberg of doing sports stuff, then work can be difficult to find sometimes. And so I wanted to have a different aspect, a different perspective, and so I saw this production job, applied for it. I really caked up my resume. Like, we're using like great engagement words and things like that. I had to go through like a whole class to learn how to do that.
Awesome.
But yeah, they called me. I wanted to do a phone interview. He's like, "Can you come out to Seattle in a couple of weeks?" I'm like, "I was coming out to Seattle anyway, so I'll just swing by the TV station." And so we went through there, and I guess I confirmed his liking of me with the in-person stuff and how I interacted with the team. And so we went from there. But yeah, I definitely definitely did not expect some of the stuff that has been here as far as like work and stuff goes. And it's not things that I had really done a whole lot of before. And so it was a challenge. Initially I was kind of over my head a little bit because they do things very differently from what I had been doing and my way of doing things. And it's not worse. It's not better. It's just, everybody has their different things. And so there was a little adjustment period. I was not expecting to get the job. I assumed that there was going to be a lot of people that were more qualified than I was, but it's the people side, the interaction side, I think that got me the leg up on the competition.
That's one thing I really appreciate about you, James, is you are a very genuine person. And I think that comes across and has probably helped you with the interviews. What do you think that genuine personality did for you throughout the interview process to maybe help you?
Not being afraid to like put my stamp on things, voicing like my opinions on how certain things go. Part of their interview process was, doing a mock-up for a segment they were going to be shooting. And so, it's a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, whatever time limit they put on it. And you have to basically mock up like all the shots that you want to do and all the stuff like that. And I had done research on the company. I had looked at some of the commercials and stuff like that. And I knew that it was a very broadcast style. But despite that, I didn't want to be, a faker and say what they wanted me to say or what they wanted to hear. And I just put my stamp on everything with how I would shoot these things and how I would go through it. When he talked to me, he asked me about my levels on things, and I was very honest about that. And I said, once again, just like the conversation with Jason, I said, you're not going to find anybody that'll work harder than me to learn these things that you want me to learn. You take a flyer on me, and I promise it'll pay off for you. And I proved it. I think so far, we're still improving every day, and it's a never-ending pursuit. But yeah, I think that just telling them exactly how I would do things and being honest with everything, I think helps out a lot.
What do you like about that KOMO-TV job?
For me personally, I work very well on my own terms. And so having the ability to come into work if I want to or not if I don't want to. We don't have a set schedule for work at all. I don't think my boss would probably want to hear me say all this stuff like that, but it'll be fine. There's no set schedule on when we come in, as long as we log our 8 hours for the day, or if we log 4 hours for one day and we feel burnt out, then we come back in and we make it up sometime, towards the end of the week or later on in the week or something like that. It's a very relaxed dress code when I go in there. I wouldn't have to get all super fancy. I've been in there in jeans and a t-shirt a lot of the times. I think that's more because of the department that I work in. I'm not on camera. I'm not the face of anything. So I just kind of, I can ninja in there and do my thing. But it's they let you adult is basically what it comes down to. I mean, it's a trust system. It's an honor system. We give you these projects. Let's, get them out to each of the different people. I work with 2 other guys. And so let's spread it evenly between the 3 of us. Make sure we all have work and get it done on time. And how you get it done is up to you. The time frame that you work it on is up to you. Coming into work is up to you. All this other stuff like that. We'll give you the tools just as long as you get your stuff done. We don't really care how you do it, as long as you get it done in the right period of time. And so I think that's something I've really flourished under. I mean, I still spend time, I'm still on the honor system. And so I get to the end of my week and I realize I've only worked like 37 or something like that. And so I'll, log 3 extra hours of, trying to clean up some of the system files that we have as far as like our group goes. We use like a big Dropbox. And so a lot of that stuff is accessible by everybody. And so I make sure that it's nice and clean, or I'll, watch some YouTube videos on how to do something. And then I'll like make a mock-up of doing something for a station. I did something for Alaska Air. It was way out of my depth, but I had, 3 weeks to work on it. And so I sat there with After Effects and a bunch of other stuff. And I did 30 hours of work on that with YouTube videos and stuff like that, building this whole entire graphic process where everything's sliding in and out, and words are popping up from behind things, and there's 3D cameras and there's all this other stuff like that. So yeah, it's hands off. Their thing is, log your hours, get your stuff done. That's all we care about.
That sounds pretty good. I also wanted to know, from your perspective, what do you see as the benefits and also kind of some of the downsides to freelancing? What's the good and the bad for someone who wants to get into freelance to make the bulk of their income?
Freelance is a lot of fun. Hunting down jobs is tough. Clients sometimes don't make return trips, and you have to just kind of understand that that's not something that's in your control. They may want a one-off video. They may want to do just one season of work with you. They may want to do certain things one time. Not getting down on yourself because you don't get a call back about something is important. Benefits are, it's great money. It's really, really good money, especially if you get like big end, high end clients. I mean, what you think is an astronomical number is a drop in the bucket for them. And so getting that fat paycheck is good. Side note, as adulting, a lot of these companies pay without taking tax out because you're not their employee. So
yeah, I was gonna ask you about, I feel like the hardest thing for you is your tax season. How do you handle that?
Well, my first year was rough because I didn't set aside money for some of these checks that I was getting. And so I got hit at the end of the year pretty hard. And so that was sad. When you make an agreement with a company, they don't tax what they pay you. It's your business. You're a small business, so you are the one that has to handle your own tax stuff. They don't do that. You make a deal for $40,000. They're sending you $40,000, so you have to set aside, that 8 or 9 or 10 grand to be able to pay your taxes at the end of the year. So don't spend it unless you plan on making it back later on. But then you're going to have to pay taxes on that anyway. So it was interesting. That part I didn't know that when I started. But it's great. People fly you out to places. They pay for you for nice hotels. They talk you up to other companies, and so you get this cascading effect of work, which is nice when people pass your names on. But then sometimes you hit a dry spell. There was a period where it was 4 months and I didn't have a single job because I was getting undercut by every single person on the market. And everybody that I had to work for, they were put their whole entire everything, their advertising on hold because it was still COVID time. And so it's like, why are we advertising with people that do outdoor stuff if they can't go outdoors? We can save $200,000 a year on not advertising. So but yeah, big perks of travel. I'm a big travel person, so getting out, seeing new things. I like to see new stuff all the time. That's kind of why I like this job as well. But changing the environment, changing the shooting, changing the stuff, that's really good.
That takes us to our next big question, which I think I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with it. But what are your future dreams within this business?
I am still in monthly contact with the emails of people who don't always respond, but the emails of people working in the Ravens franchise. I told my boss, I was like, when I come here, just know that I will be here as long as possible. But if they have a Ravens job open, you better believe I'm applying. He's like, where's that at? I'm like, Baltimore. He's like, oh, we have a hub in Baltimore. Why don't you just, move over there and work for us? And then you can just do that other stuff on the side. I'm like, I don't think that's an option for an NFL team. But whatever.
Depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. But yeah, it's I do still want to take a shot at the sports stuff, broadcasting and things like that. I've been talking to Nico, and so I'm still trying to finagle a way to get me on some sideline stuff when the season starts, and I'm trying to bribe him a little bit with food or something. I'll figure it out.
What has he said about it? What does Nico say about it?
He hasn't said anything yet. I volunteered camera services. I volunteered all kinds of stuff to get out there and just be on the sidelines and shoot things. So he said if he needs anything, he would let me know. But we didn't have any specific talks. So we'll see. Maybe I can get you to influence him a little bit and be
I'll try.
Hey, he needs to get on the field.
I'll tell you what is often a good in is people from other stations, right? So let's say you're playing, I don't know, let's say you're playing Baltimore, right? And Baltimore doesn't want to spend the money to send a crew there, then they might call the station and say, hey, can we get a photographer to freelance for us there for the day? So that often happens. That happens a lot here in Tampa where I live, where that often will happen depending on who you work for and who needs it. So that's something I might ask them about.
I should do that. Unfortunately, it's going to be a tough pull because I believe the King still has the contract for the Seahawks games. King is the other
Hmm.
station. It's like 2 blocks over, and we don't like them.
But if it's a
Um,
local affiliate, is what I'm saying, right? So if
yeah,
it's one of your affiliates that doesn't want to send someone, they might pay you.
listen, I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. I'll work whatever angle I can. But yeah, end goal is something for the Ravens. I mean, I see their content production, and for all the students or anybody else who watches this, if you haven't seen some of the stuff they produce, it is a work of art. I mean, I think that their social media team and their production team is probably the best in the league. I mean, I've seen other teams' videos, and it's like a quick shot of some dudes like running out on the field, and there's like a little lower third nameplate there, and it's nothing too crazy. And like Baltimore's out there just getting wild with drone shots and POV cams, and I love it. Big fan of them.
Awesome. Well, I think that opportunity at some point is going to come through for you, James. I really feel it. What do you think that, how do you think what you're doing now is preparing you for that opportunity when it comes your way?
It's rounding out the skill sets. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty competent. Obviously, like I said, I always say there's always more to learn. But as far as like beauty shots and stuff like that, I'm really good at those. I'm really good at the slow motion and the pans and the depth of field and the angles and stuff like that. So now I'm learning like a broadcast style, which they also do there at the Ravens Center. And so working on interview skills is something that I still do. I still do some coaching for some of the on-screen talent that we have on some things. I try to help people simplify things. I still work on scripts all the time with what I do. So I mean, it's I'm just hammering out all the fine points on everything that I have learned from Full Sail, and I've been expanding on since I've been here. And so, yeah, just keep learning everything new. I mean, I still get Adobe emails about new updates. I always stay on top of camera gear, um, lenses, all the stuff out there. It's your doctors are studying new treatments and stuff like that. If you're not doing the same thing in your field, then it's not just doctors. And so if you're not doing that, then I don't know what to tell you. You don't want to be that guy who just gets passed up by everybody, and you don't learn.
I love your commitment to continuously learning. Jeff Schetzel would be proud of you. That's what he always says, always learn something new every day, right? So I'm glad that you are living that dream per se. All right, let's get to the final section, the dream sequence, as I call it. I'm going to give you rapid fire. I'm going to say dream this, dream that. You give me your best answer in a short period of time. You ready for it?
Yes, sir.
All right, we got to talk Ravens to start, right? Dream Ravens front seven on defense. We all know about the Ravens defense. You get to pick any 7 players on the front 7 that have ever played for the Ravens. Who is your dream 7?
Haloti Ngata, Suggs. I actually really like Justin Houston on the other side, another pass rush. Honestly, do we need more?
Well, you get 7, you got 3, so you're missing a pretty big name in there that I would think you'd throw out. But
Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
Ray Lewis. I would like to have who went to the Jets, the linebacker who went to the Jets from Baltimore. Oh, I can't remember his name. I'm terrible with names, by the way. This is a horrible
All right.
ask.
Well, let's just keep it to 4 then. We'll keep it to 4 then. All right. You talk about you like to travel. Dream shooting location for you.
Spa. Spa is a track that is on the F1 circuit. It's the fastest track of the year, in my opinion. So Belgium, Red Bull Ring, Spa.
Okay. Dream weekend road trip from Seattle. We've talked a little bit about you and your friends earlier off camera. Where would you like to go from Seattle? You can go anywhere you want that's within a weekend drive for you. Where do you want to go?
I've been here a year and a half now, and I still have not taken the PCH all the way down to the end yet.
Oh,
so
great call.
We're gonna need to do that.
I have not taken the whole thing, but I have taken it from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and then from Los Angeles to San Diego. And I had to do it at night for part of it. And the moon and I bonded like none other that night, James, because we're driving around cliffs, and I don't know how I'm still alive, but we made it. Okay, yep. This is a random one. Seattle is known for you talk about the market and all that. Let's say that there's a sandwich shop in the market. Dream sandwich named after you. What's on it?
Oh man. Lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, olives. I like the salami, Black Forest ham. I think I'm turkey. Turkey, that's it. I'm gonna go with that.
That's pretty good. You were rolling those off the tongue. That came pretty easy to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I like making a lot of sandwiches here because everything else is too expensive.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Okay, we talked Ravens. You know, you got your setup in your place. You were telling me about how you had Hard Knocks on one TV, Ravens preseason on the other, which you're about to watch after we get done, probably. Dream Ravens Cave. You can have anything you want to watch the game. A room dedicated to the Ravens. What's in there?
I want 2 Ray Lewis jerseys from the 2000 and the 2012 Super Bowl sitting on the sides. I'll take a 100-inch projection TV. I want love sacks all over the place. My Philips Hue lights that I really enjoy because I can just make them any color that I want. It's great ambiance. Man, honestly, I'm pretty bare bones. That would probably be Ed Reed jersey in there as well, and a whiskey bar.
No, that sounds good. Sounds
That'll
very good. All right, you're definitely a high-tech gadget guy. Dream high-tech equipment gift if someone wants to give it to you over the holidays. What kind of gift you looking for? What kind of toy you want to play with?
A Rye Alexa Mini. That's the new release. I rock an FX6 right now with Sony. Huge Sony fan. FX9 maybe the next step, or maybe one of the Venice cams. But a Rye just came out. They're like super high-end theater and like camera setups. The Orion Alexa Mini just came out, and it's basically the same size as my FX6, same weight, $47,000. So, can you put a PayPal thing up here for me so we can get started on that?
Yeah, I don't think I can get that for you, James. I'm sorry.
You're
getting your own launch box, right? About 5 of them will pay for that.
Yeah,
right. So,
yeah, exactly.
All right, I think that's a good way to end it. Thanks so much for your time, James. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I wish you the best in all the jobs that you are working. And James, a lot of insight for those of you who want to get into the business. I'm sure he'd be happy if you reached out to him. So find him. He'll be on our Facebook page for sure. That's going to do it for tonight's episode. Thanks again to James Ballerstein, who is a master of many crafts. We'll have another great guest for you coming up next week. But until then, for the rest of you, keep on living the dream.